910, Big 550, KTRS, and all the editors and publishers and bosses at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Our next guest has been working diligently all morning long, up at 4 o'clock in the morning, making sure his stories are just right. He's David Hunn, following this Rams and owners meeting down in Phoenix. Good morning, David Hunn.
Good morning, McGraw. How are you?
All right. In your story at stltoday.com, at the end, you say that Stan Kroenke was seen in the hallway, chuckled, and said no comment. What did you ask him which got a chuckle out of him?
So I knew you were going to ask me about this. It was such an interesting moment, and if you have time, I'll tell you a quick story.
Go ahead.
I was talking with Steve Tisch, who's the Giants co-owner, the New York Giants co-owner.
Right.
Nicest guy ever, sitting down, taking time, and he asks if I've talked with Kroenke. And I say, no, we've tried, but I can't get him. I've tried several times for this trip alone. I can't get him. And right at that moment, Kroenke walks by, kind of followed by this throng of reporters. And Tisch kind of thumbs his finger and says, like, hey, get going. And so I walk after Kroenke, and he has just kind of said to the reporters, hey, we're not talking. And then I say, Mr. Kroenke, real quick, David Hunn from the Post-Dispatch. And I think just hearing his hometown paper's name made him, he kind of smirked and then chuckled. And I said, I'm sorry, I've got to say hi. And he said, you do? Well, hi, good to see you. And then Kevin Demoff, the director of operations there at the Rams, said, okay, Dave, we're not talking about this today. We got a meeting to go to. And that was the end of it.
All right. Yeah.
And no further than that. I'll tell you, it was actually fascinating. I think all the pictures and the images of Kroenke portray him as somewhat kind of short and, I don't know, strange. And in person, he was the best dressed guy in the house. I hate to say that to St. Louis fans who hate Kroenke,
right?
But he's taller than you think. He's in this kind of fancy blue plaid suit, and he was well put together.
Well, anyone who has spent any amount of time with him says he's very funny, he's very enjoyable, he's very personable, but that's certainly not the image that he wants to give off to the rest of us. And they say he's a very private man. So there's a public face and a private face. So how much of yesterday and Robert Kraft's conversation and all, how much of that was organized, and how much of that was just sort of them holding a conversation and the media getting as much out of them as possible?
All of it is the latter. None of it's organized. I mean, it's a very interesting scene. I mean, I've never been to something like this before. And, this is a fancy resort in the middle of Arizona where they have these meetings regularly. And, there's more media here, McGraw, than there are owners. I mean, by leaps and bounds.
Right.
I mean, it's a room full of media. They had to expand to another building. There's so many reporters here. And it's this scene where these guys kind of get chased around for 3 or 4 days. I feel kind of bad for them, I mean, as soon as they step out of their hotel room, there's no peace.
Right.
And so there's nothing really set up. Everything is, you just kind of grab something in the hallway and say, hey, and I think, sometimes people are looking for just a quick quote, and sometimes it's more, hey, might you have time to sit down later on today? And then you can kind of arrange something there.
It seems like that between the lines from your story at stltoday.com that the NFL is sort of signaling with this Eric Grubman's quotes and Robert Kraft's quotes that they like St. Louis, and whether or not the Rams stay, they certainly would like to see some NFL team here in St. Louis.
I think it all comes down, every single time I've heard somebody talk or talk to somebody about the issue, they say something about how realistic, how concrete is the plan in St. Louis. And I think it all comes down to that. If St. Louis can put together a plan that these owners find concrete, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. What does it mean to have a concrete plan? But whatever that is, that's what the owners want. They want a concrete plan. And right now, they don't think anything's real. So, as much work as St. Louis has put into this, it's not yet at the place that the owners feel like it's a quote-unquote real plan.
They've also been sort of quoted as saying, and this is the first time they've sort of acknowledged that there's a very real possibility that football will be played in Los Angeles in 2016.
Yeah, that looks like, and some people think 2 teams. So that's, John Mara, the other owner of the Giants, Thought 2 teams, 2016. So I think it's still up in the air. There's nothing nailed down, but that's what it's definitely looking like. 2016 is a real possibility.
Has anybody floated the idea of expansion at all?
Early on, not in this meeting. Early on, we talked about expansion with Grubman, and he said it's not on the table.
Right.
Now, things could change. Things do change, and I'm certain that this is all going to happen in ways. When it all comes down to it, this is going to happen so fast we're not going to know what hit us. But expansion at that point was completely a non-starter.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I said that earlier in the show, and that when this happens, we're going to wake up one morning and there's going to be a story from David Hunn at STLtoday.com that says the Rams have packed up and left, and they're off to L.A. So what about San Diego? What about Oakland? What's being talked about with those 2 teams out there?
Yeah, I'm actually still trying to figure out how much detail. So those guys were also in the presentation that Grubman, so as I said in the story today, Eric Grubman, the vice president for kind of opportunities, talked to the owners for the first time yesterday about all of these plans. So St. Louis, the 3 Los Angeles plans, and also the responses in Oakland and San Diego. What I'm not sure about is so I don't think Oakland has done much. San Diego a little more, but I'm not sure where those plans stand. We obviously focused on St. Louis. So I need to still figure that stuff out. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
well, it's all part of it's all part of the story, because there's 3 teams and there's 4 cities, and when the music stops, there's going to be either 1 or 2 cities without an NFL team.
Right.
Yeah. What's on tap today? What happens today?
For me, it's all the little stuff now. It's talking to owners about exactly how this process works. It's talking to, I need to figure that out, what you just asked. I need to figure out how far have they gotten in San Diego and Oakland. Yeah. Obviously, that makes a huge difference. If they've gotten nowhere, then the NFL is going to look much more favorably on St. Louis, and I think be much more interested in moving San Diego and the Raiders to Los Angeles. As we know, what's more likely to happen, instead of 4 cities and 3 teams, it's more likely to be 2 teams going to Los Angeles,
right,
and 1 team left for the other 3.
Right. No, good point. What about the rumors keep hearing, and it's just sort of what's the rumor mill down there about? Yeah. Kroenke, it's trading the Rams for the Broncos, or leaving the Rams here and getting his team to the Broncos, and all that type of stuff. Any rumors about that you hear?
Yeah, no, not at all. The owners are really tight-lipped about that stuff. They're not going to talk about rumors in any way.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: I've thought about that issue a lot, and the wrinkle in all of that is that the NFL doesn't control all that stuff. These are owned, properties by each owner. So, the NFL can have the best plans on the planet, and the owners can disagree, or Kroenke can have the enough votes to move the Rams anyway. It's just really unclear. Even if great plans come about, one owner could throw a wrinkle in all of it.
Yeah. I bet you Shad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, will talk to you.
Yeah. So he's on my list. We've actually made contact with his people, and I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, because
we're hoping.
But he's got a long-term lease in Jacksonville. So
yeah,
a lot of
people. We've talked to them at length. Obviously the first thing everybody said was, "Wow, let's get Khan back," and they're sticking with their guns that they have a lot of plans in Jacksonville and no intention of going anywhere. Now, of course, they have to say that, but that is what they're saying.
Yeah. All right. So the St. Louis Post-Dispatch put you up at the Arizona Biltmore?
I wish, McGraw.
All right.
Next time, maybe I'll push for that.
You're at the Holiday Inn Express. I got you. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's along those lines. I don't even know the name of it, but it's that kind of.
David Hunn, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Thanks for checking in, David. Have a good time.
Nice talking to you, McGraw.
All right. David Hunn covering the owners' meetings in Arizona for the NFL owners, along with the St. Louis Rams. They're tight-lipped, sort of floating out some of these ideas. We'll come back in a couple of different scenarios. I talked to somebody yesterday who I have a whole lot of confidence in terms of having his nose and ears to the ground and sort of he gave me a couple of interesting different nuggets yesterday that I will pass along to you in just a moment. Kathleen